Hey there, greetings to my people from here at the Great Start Studio, where all of my drumming dreams are coming true. It's true. So this is where I'm shooting a video of the entire instructional series here in the studio, the 13 volumes of the London's Great Start Drum Set series. It's printed and the Kindle versions are available on Amazon as well as on my website, which is London's Great Start Drum Set. You can go there and check it all out. All my new videos from the studio will be available on that website for online lessons. Today I'm going to be talking about revealing some of my original drum heroes, what I call the Artistic Influence series. Drummers that I can actually see some of their playing in mine, that they've influenced me to that level. Drummers who truly changed my playing for the better, all the way through. There's some influence there in my actual hands and feet when I play. If in the studio, if I made posters of all the tribute, as a tribute to all the people, it'd just be every inch of every wall would be covered. It's just that these are the ones that have really, really influenced me in some foundational sort of way. So I made these posters as a tribute and a reminder of these great players. They're in my office. I'll be showing you. There's just too many to cover them all, but a handful that have really actually, I can see in my playing. There's so many great players who have inspired me in my drumming, but these are the select ones that have some way become a part of my style, my diversity, my teaching, my writing, and helped me develop my unique voice, which is a hard thing to find. You have to really listen inside. So anyway, enjoy the whole Artistic Influence series, and I'll be running them down, and I'll see you at the end. So next up on my video series of inspirational posters of drummers in my office is JoJo Mayer. Now, JoJo Mayer, for me, all of a sudden was at a clinic through Sabian at the music store where I was teaching. We would have one a year, and he just kind of like popped up out of nowhere. This is before he did Modern Drummer and before he had started making some products through the companies that was built out of his kind of his electronic sort of style. He that clinic really affected me. It really affected me because here's this guy. He's very slight in his build, and yet he's making all of these things happen, not in a muscular sort of way, but in just a response sort of way. He's a single bass player. Takes full advantage of that, of getting his techniques to keep up with those kind of note demands. He's very 16th note oriented, lots of continuous streams of very linear, funky, electronic sort of sounds out of his kit. That is his whole drive, really, is that he tapped into this idea that I've always liked electronic music, and so to have someone appeal to taking an acoustic, completely acoustic set, and then to craft it, kind of soundscape it in a way into with actual techniques on the drums, but also actual note value techniques that to create more of an electronic sort of sound, kind of a drum and bass program sort of sound, but yet freer, more like jazz, where it's improvisational. He's thinking very quickly of these changes, all these tiny nuances. It's very, very, very cool. And he's got a unique thing that I don't think anybody has, and especially then, where he was just really blazing a trail of this kind of untapped spectrum of the drum set in the modern world with electronics, and he had this thing where he was talking about his hand technique, and he has very quick joint response, like his first knuckle and his thumb and his first finger, and he would just do like a one-handed cymbal roll with this stick by pushing the stick out as a hit and then pulling it in as a hit. So kind of bending those knuckles. And it was just going, it's this quick little, and I was like, wow, that's actually possible, right? And I had just started really opening up my hands because I was taught to kind of bury it in that kind of the second knuckle of your first finger, and your thumb would kind of, crimp in there, and you just kind of squeeze it down and use your fingers from behind. But once I started moving the stick out to the first knuckle of my finger, and there was always kind of a space, it's like baby steps to pull the stick into your hand. But to release, and then you're doing everything. Like you're doing everything for the stick. The question is, what can I make a stick do? But when you have a better question, which is what will a stick do for me, you start releasing control of the stick and you share the physics, and then you help it and it helps you kind of form a partnership. He's a master at that. He's a master. He had a DVD set where on hand technique, totally a landmark work. This will stand the test of time, this work, because I was watching it through, and he walks down every known hand technique that had ever been done. And of course, he's flailing on, and he's killing, and then he's explaining what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages. And I get done with that, and I go, man, that is just a massive drum work, historically, just brilliant. And then I go to put it away, and I go, well, there's another one, right? There's a whole another one. I was like, wow, this is like unbelievable amounts of work. And then in the end, and I was so curious to see kind of what he comes down to in the end. In the end, of course, he's a traditional grip player mainly, and and everybody at every clinic, they'd always ask him, whatever the clinician is, hey, what do you think about match grip or traditional grip? And all those guys go, hey, I was taught traditional grip. I'm the most comfortable with this. I've been doing it, and I do it for most of my playing. But if I were you, I would probably learn match grip, because you're accessing both sides of the drums, using the same psychology, same physics, same blah, blah, blah. And you don't have to angle your drum. The one stick is pointing, both sticks are pointing in the direction of the set that you want, as opposed to one stick pointing across from your left side to your right side. And all those reasons that they bring up. Well, he would talk about that, but he's got excellent hand technique, and he walks down all these techniques, and then he goes, well, there isn't really one technique that encapsulates everything that you need to do, especially on really elaborate setups, because of all the different needs and requirements and note phrasing requirements and positioning requirements. And so he goes, what you want to do is take the best of any of those techniques that you need to get that job done. And I've always said this, as everybody gets hung up on, no, it's this way, it's that way, it's the other way, and you're like, well, actually, there's a lot of different reasons to play a lot of different techniques. And so I really, really appreciated him coming down to that. It's kind of like the Steve Smith thing where they ask him, what is his version of his ideas of hand technique are now. And he said, well, anything that gets in the way of the rebound of the stick coming back up is just an efficiency mistake, really, because you want it to just come back up, and then you are relaxing in that time and resetting it for the next thing, and it's the freest way of getting it to do that note and the progressing notes after that. Anyway, JoJo really affected me in that clinic. And then, of course, the modern drummer thing. But he had a thing he was really known for, where he would kind of run his thumb across the tom head and hit it, and it would make kind of a sound where it would kind of not be a singular sound, but more almost of a electronic sort of sweeping sound. And then he would put, this is back when he would just put a splash cymbal on the snare and play that, and it would create this metallic sort of sound. And so you basically had this sort of pitter-patter of electronic ghost note tapping sort of sounds in these grooves, and he's got great accent control, of course, so he can bring these accents out in any part of those 16th notes that he chooses to do. And it just creates this whole palette of electronic sort of ism, and that's so attractive. It's so attractive to be able to take a drum set. This is one of the great things about the clinics, is we'd set these drums up and we'd tune them, and we'd have them all set up, and then you'd play around on it in the room, make sure the mics or whatever, and okay, it's really great. The clinician would come in and play that same exact drum set that you're standing in the same room, right? There's no, like on video, there's always kind of a question mark. Is it edited? Is it blah, blah, blah? Is it this? And there's a sort of question mark about how real it is. It's always different when you're in the same room. I remember growing up everything was about driving. My dad put me on anything with an engine. He's got me holding me up while I'm in diapers on the cat or the backhoe or something on the dump truck. And so I had a bicycle out here, and the next thing you know, well, there's a mini bike, and then the next thing you know, there's a go-kart. And Dad just loved putting me on these things and just sending me off. He didn't even tell me how. You just push that and it goes. And that kind of thing is there's details in. Gosh, it's hard to express how these things affect you. Okay, so JoJo really affected me in this thing that is more of a what's possible. Like I would get on the drums right before the clinician would come in, and it would sound totally different. Like totally different. And so in the driving sort of way, we would, it's like I was really into race cars, and Dad was funny. He was a police chief here, but he basically said, you can drive as fast as you want on your own property. And he ruined me for driving. Like he totally ruined me for driving. And so it took me years to be able to get control over that, to where it wasn't a play thing. It was like, okay, this is a safety issue, right? It was all the way until I had kids, until I really calmed down. But the notion of driving was never more real than when I went to a NASCAR race in Las Vegas. And my wife at the time worked the Hard Rock. She got these tickets, blah, blah, blah. We went out there, out in the desert. There's, 100 and some odd thousand people out there. There's the 2-mile track, and we're up in the stands. And those things are like rockets. And all of a sudden, after my whole life of thinking I understood about driving and, it was totally different to think there is a guy in that rocket going around this track. It's insane. It's insane. They try to relate it on TV. They can't. This is what I'm saying about being in the same room with a clinician. It's really important to not just have your experiences through video. You got to be in the same room as these people. And then it hits you, the dynamic uniqueness of their artistry. JoJo has that. When you sat down on the drums, it instantly was like a totally different instrument. Just radically different because of his artistic vision, of his discipline, of his skill level, of just how he wanted to package himself in this sort of way that was like free electronic expression on an acoustic kit. Really affected me. And then, of course, he created this, it's like a metallic sound hoop through the companies that goes around on your snare drum, and that creates kind of that metallic sound as opposed to just putting a whole cymbal on. There was always a bit of a frustration with the cymbal because you hit it and it would really bounce off, and this thing doesn't, this ring. And so he's really made an impact into the industry. When you see him with his band Nerve, and at these clinics where he's running some of these tracks down, and they're very drum and bass oriented, and very electronic, and kind of soundscaping in the back. It's not prog, it's not fusion, it's not some kind of authentic style. It's this kind of electronic palette that allows him to kind of grow these electronic expressions on the acoustic kit, and that environment makes it leap out. It makes it completely leap out as just sounding different. And of course, every time you hear somebody who has managed somehow to kind of break free from, not really break free from the traditions that they grew up in, but to stand on top of them. You kind of climb on top of them so that you can see just a little farther about what's possible for you as an artist. And once again, that is so attractive to be able to find your sound, the sound that is unique to you. Now, maybe some people just naturally don't think they're very unique. I'd like to think that I'm pretty unique. And so I want to develop my expression on the drums to be something that is, Larry London. When you walk in and you go, well, that's got to be JoJo Mayer, right, playing. And then you open the door and then you go, yeah, there you go, there it is. And that kind of reveal of unique artistry to that artist is very, very appealing. So JoJo, I thank you. I thank you for your incredible work on what, for the most part, is a pretty standard drum set form, and getting this incredible sound to come out, of course, through your technical prowess of your limbs and your thoughts and your artistry. It's really, really affected me, and I appreciate that, and want my work to gravitate to the level of uniqueness that you have had. It's extraordinary. Thank you.